be taking a look at what happened out of the Leon Regional, and don't worry, Sonora actually had agents for us as well. Welcome to your doubleheader regional talk here. The first regional and everything we'll be looking at here is going to be the Leon Regional out of, actually I don't know where this is. For this regional we had 2 Chimera decks. Actually this entire regional is a pretty good representation as to what's actually going on within the meta here. You know, a lot of these top metagame contenders, a lot of people look at, they're like, oh, you know, like X didn't do well, you know, Rogue didn't do well. This is actually like what I would expect the top end of the meta to actually functionally be like. So yeah, 2 Chimera decks. You also had 2 purely challengers here in the room competing with each other, which I'm actually happy to see that purely is kind of bringing up the forefront of things here as well. The Cat in the Hat deck still being one of those metagame contenders that a lot of people kind of look at and they're like, well, you know, sometimes it'll be a 1 of, it'll be a 2 of in other regionals. Hasn't really been a 3 of out of any of these blocks. It's been competing, but it hasn't been overwhelming. And then we have Manadium here as well. I'm also kind of happy to see that Manadium has been, you know, doing pretty well out here. The deck does have some issues at the end of the day, to be perfectly honest with you, but what isn't having some sort of issue right now trying to compete on the top end of the meta? And we also had Branded for you here too. I am actually very shocked to see that Branded maybe has been kind of falling off. To be fair, most of the people have been putting their resources into the Chimera variant because it's just the most consistent. We also had some, oh boy, some Cash Tira. Oh man, your standard metagame contender out here. To be fair, it is old reliable. It is the consistent, you know, monster that it has been. So I don't really blame them for still playing that deck. And we had some Rescue Ace for you out here as well. So once again, I mean, you've still got the same chunk of meta. You had the same, you know, contenders still sitting in the room. And I think that that's overall a good thing when you're still seeing the meta kind of maintain itself. Okay, not too bad. All right, we're going to pass on over so you can take a look at how this regional played out. The first thing we're going to be looking at here is our Branded Chimera list. And I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty sure we've seen as much as you're going to get in terms of the excitement factor of this deck because it's been so figured out at this point in time. You know, most of the builds have stripped down to the 1 Fallen of Albaz. It still gets the job done. I know a lot of people are like, well, Robbie, what if I want to, you know, experiment and try some other variants? No, just play the 1. All right. 2 is if you want to ensure that you're going to get the best consistent routes or, you know, something happened. Trust me, the amount of times I can tell you that I draw this stupid thing really saddens me. And then, of course, I mean, yeah, obviously, if you draw it, it is what it is. We are also playing 2 Book of Moon. That way you can go ahead and set any of the more oppressive cards that your opponent might be setting up. That might be boss monsters. And then, of course, we have 1 Tack Talent here to go ahead and punish the opponent. And, of course, we are playing some Crossout Designator here. Trust me when I say this, there are a lot of hand traps that can be a pain in the butt for this deck, and this deck wants to make sure that it can dodge any sort of those predicaments that it might come up with. So Crossout basically allows you to kind of curve things out, and you can only imagine the cute little things that you can do in the mirror match with this. So, you know, I actually like this. This list is pretty good. Next up here, we have our Manadium list. We are on a 2-2 split on the books, which I don't actually know how I feel about that. I feel like maybe we're pushing the bill a little bit too much here. But, I mean, it did work out for this regional, so I can't knock it too much. Speaking of knocking it, we are on triple Crossout Designator. If we're worried about the Ash Blossoms or the Draw and Lockbirds here, we have the counterplay built into the deck to make sure that, hey, you know, we don't have to deal with this. We're able to kind of do our thing. And whatnot. We are playing the 1 reframing. I've seen a few people like, no, you need to play multiple. No, play the 1. It's fine. We do have the Scarlight Archfiend for time. We are playing Talents with the Thrust in the side deck. And, of course, multiple other Thrust targets. We have the Dimensional Barrier, the Eradicator, and the Evenly Matched to be able to pull in at any point. And, of course, I mean, we're playing 1 Nibiru here as well for the Crossout. You know what? If you do happen to draw in the matchup that you do need it for, I do suppose that it can be quite a useful piece. And then we're playing the Wind Kaiju here. I mean, it's 2,700 attack points. It's something that we can get over. Shouldn't be too much of an issue at the end of the day to kind of handle on the backside of things. So, okay, not too bad. What else we got back here? Hey! It's Purely. Now, this Purely build kind of breaks the standard mold that I've seen at this point in time where players have been main decking how many books at this point in time? Actually, I think the last build that I saw that had success was focusing more on, oh boy, how many books? I think it was 3. And then they were playing like the Book of Eclipses as well. Maybe not so much the Book of Eclipses. Now, this is what I find interesting. This build actually opted to play cross-out Detonators, which means they were worried about this little guy right here. At any point in time that you feel that Droll Knockbird is just going to be an absolute inconvenience, this has become the counterplay. Obviously, you do have things like Called by the Grave if you do want to try to do it, but having this be an option that can cover more bases, I think has definitely put this card ahead of the metagame curve. Especially, you got to think about the mirror match applications that this card can bring to you as well. We just talked about that with the Chimera stuff. So it's interesting to see that this deck did adapt towards playing crossouts. Maybe something to consider for the future. Next up here, we have our branded duelist. And the first thing I see down here is we are playing the Fusion Duplication. Now, this does come up every once in a while, because it's just target a fusion or polymerization, normal or quick play spell card in either graveyard, banish that spell, and then apply that spell's effect when that card was activated. So basically, this replaces its own effect and becomes that spell. Now, do keep in mind that the fact that this can work for the mirror match. You can banish your opponent's Branded Fusion if you somehow brick in some awkward world, and you can just punish the opponent. We're also playing the Book of Eclipses here as well. Same thing that I've kind of mentioned here for the last little bit here. You use this to tear apart boards, set down things that are going to be troublesome cards, and then congratulations, you're now playing through your opponent's field. And of course, how many lists today am I going to see? This regional loved Crossout Designator. They wanted to make sure that if their opponent was doing anything that looked like it was going to be a threat to the meta, they had it covered. So, good stuff. The amount of control that these decks had for these events is actually insane to me. Next up here, we have some Rescue Ace. Now, this kind of also breaks the mold here. I'm used to seeing, oh my gosh, the 3-3 split on the books. It's usually 6. But one thing that this build is doing that other builds have not done up to this point is we're actually packing evenly matched in here. So once again, this allows you the chance to kind of go second. You look at your opponent's field and go, hey, I can board break that. And to be fair, I can understand why you can have a level of interchangeability with this and this. The thing is, this just gives you defensive power as well. So say you go second, this is where you'd want more of the value for this. Also, I mean for this, but if you go first, you can set these and punish the opponent. You don't really get that with evenly. If you go first, it's just, this is kind of a dead card that you've got in the main deck. So maybe, I don't know, you're doing your internal struggle here in terms of the value tree for what's going to generate you the best possible streamline of advantage. And I would make an argument that both of these work out. This was successful for the regional. It did pan out. So at the end of the day for that, that's not too bad. So that is all that we have here for the Leon regional, which I actually like what we're seeing here. Now, the last list that we have here is out of the Sonora regional here, and this is Agents. Now, the reason why I wanted to actually talk about Agents here is, when was the last time that you saw Agents do anything? Especially, since the new stuff is out here. This is kind of a swan event here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm genuinely impressed. We are also playing the Celestial Transformation. Just special summon a fairy monster marine hand. The attack is halved and it's destroyed during the end phase. So I mean, technically we can bring out any sort of extender we're needing here. I don't see the best card in the fairy deck though. There's no Archlord Christia present in this. They actually didn't need it. I do attribute a lot of this deck's potential success to Archlord Christia at certain points, but you're basically just going to be toggling up through a lot of the link plays here and a lot of the synchro plays. You're just going to end on some pretty impressive fields. Honestly, Master Flare Hyperion is a stupid good card, and I can tell you the amount of players that have literally no idea how to, handle this, especially when you're climbing up and ending on like Apollosa, the Master Flare, quite possibly some hand rip interactions here as well. You got a lot of stuff that you can do with this deck. Agents It might not be the strongest meta deck in the room, but man, oh man, it has got some interesting plays. So that is all that we have for our double regional breakdown here. Please, leave a comment down below, tell me what you're interesting. I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.